Sugar Coated. I'm your host, Adriene Garland, the CEO and founder of She Leads Media. For far too long, women have been conditioned to sugarcoat their words, their actions, and the way they show up in the world, and to conform to certain cultural norms and ideals. This is inherently designed to keep those who are outside of the norm from gaining power, prestige, wealth, and influence, preventing more women from being recognized and respected as the powerful leaders that we truly are. Join me each week as we dive into raw conversations with remarkable, uncompromising, and inspirational women that will encourage you to strip away your sugarcoating and move boldly in the direction of your magnificent dreams. Hi, everybody. This is Adriene Garland, and welcome to Sugar Coated. I am so happy today to share my guest with you. Her name is Ashita Shah, and she is the president of Arunashi, a super high-end luxury, high-end jewelry company, designing company. Some of the most beautiful pieces of jewelry that I have ever seen in my life, worn by superstars, always included in the Robb Report. And I am so happy to be speaking with her because she is a fellow graduate of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program, which I've mentioned here on the show before, that I graduated from, and Ashita did as well. So I can't wait to have a free-flowing conversation today all about what it's like to be a mom, to be an entrepreneur, and to work in the luxury world. So welcome to Sugar Coated, Ashita.
Thank you, Adrienne. That was an amazing intro. Honestly, I feel so accomplished, but I really don't feel so accomplished all the time. But thank you for making me sound so wonderful.
Well, I know that you are wonderful. So go ahead and just introduce yourself and sort of who you are, where you are to the sugar-coated audience.
Sure. My name's, of course, Ashita Shah, and I am a mom of two kids. My husband and I started Arunashi about 18 years ago, and the name of the company is really a combination of our names. His name is Arun, and my name is Ashita, so we kind of joined it and combined it to say Arunashi. I really thought of the name in the shower. It's not as sexy, but I think it's a great company name, and we both are reflections of one another, and that's truly how I feel about the company and the way we lead our life as husband and wife, and also as business partners. So we've been designing jewelry and been in the industry for a long time. I'm a fourth generation jeweler, and Arun is a seventh generation jeweler. So we both have an incredibly strong background in the jewelry space and industry.
Gosh, that is so wonderful. Yeah, I read that your husband is an eighth generation, but I didn't know that you two were generations deep into this world. Like, what an incredible business to be in. And I think, when I just look at some of your pieces, you can tell that there's a lot of history and that there's a lot of appreciation for the different materials. The artistry is out of this world. I actually have never seen a piece in person, so I'd love to, as we get into the conversation, maybe find out where I could see a piece live and in person. But thank you so much for just agreeing to be on the show today and for being in company with me. Although we weren't we didn't go through the Goldman Sachs program together in the same cohort, we both did go through the program. I'd love to sort of hear a little bit about the business journey because you are an entrepreneur that has been in business for quite some time. I think since about 2004, if that's right, if I have that right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2004.
Wow, yeah. So that's quite some time to be in business, especially for, a growing business. It's so tough these days. And I mean, I can just imagine, COVID and all the things that are happening in the world that the jewelry business in general is probably affected. Could you just talk a little bit about the business and sort of maybe how it's evolved since you started?
Sure. So when we started the business initially, we had recently gotten married and we had moved. We had lived in India for a brief moment, then we moved to Japan, and we finally ended up in New York, and that's where we started the business. And Arun always has had a creative eye. He always did designing on some sort, but he's always been meticulous about quality, precision, and just a part of a way of storytelling that kind of rare to see in the jewelry industry. So he started the business with wanting to create pieces that are truly extraordinary and creative. And we started our first store, the first retail store that we worked with, luckily for us, was Bergdorf Goodman in New York. And we really launched our business when we at Bergdorf Goodman, and then we've grown steadily ever since. Our need for luxury, the need for quality has been something that's just kept us going. And I think that the clientele really recognizes that true value. It's all one of a kind pieces and they're not mass marketed, they're not mass produced, they're handcrafted painstakingly. And that's really been the growth of our trajectory.
I love that. The artistry, right? And then the quality of the materials and the gems and everything that is used, it all clearly comes together so beautifully. I guess being able to be aligned with a company like Bergdorf's really set the stage for the growth of your company. How did you even get into Bergdorf's?
We met Bergdorf at a trade event and they saw Arun's jewelry. It was the first time we were exhibiting. We were super nervous. We really geared up, but we didn't know what to expect. And they saw the jewelry collection and they said that they had to have it in their store. And it
Wow.
really launched our line from there. I mean, we were really lucky, but I also think his experience helped substantially in
Yeah.
opening with Bergdorf. And once we were in Bergdorf, we started working with a lot of the other retailers.
What other retailers? Just curious. I'm very curious about this aspect of the business, and the reason I'm asking some of these very specific questions is because number one, I am a teacher. I do a lot of teaching at NYU. We have a group of students that are in an event management and hospitality program. They're going for their masters, and so many of them are interested in just like the luxury market, not only arts and crafts, but also just designing exceptional experiences globally. And so I know that they are super interested in hearing from somebody like you and understanding what are all of the, all the little pieces and the things that you need to consider when starting and growing a business. So I'm just curious, what other retailers are you in, currently?
So we work with several of the Saks Fifth Avenue stores, and we also work with Neiman Marcus. We work in the areas where they can support our jewelry with the right demographics and the right clientele. And across the country, we also work with retailers who may have a line of clothing in their store, but it's really high end.
Mm.
Again, where they bring in a certain clientele that want these exquisite pieces, that want these absolute luxury pieces, and they go hand in hand in styling with the clothing that the stores will carry. So we don't have a wide network. We like to go really deep with our clients because our pieces are one of a kind and they take a long time to make. And we don't have high volume of pieces, but we do have, lots of interesting, unique jewelry pieces that we create. So we work with few stores, but we're really deep with them.
Who's involved in actually getting, going into these stores, speaking to the buyers and sort of presenting the line?
We have a sales team that's remote. That's always been remote from different parts of the country that will go into a store and speak to them. If they've shown interest, they'll go in and speak to them, show them the line with line sheets and sometimes physical pieces. But at the end of the day, it's very important for Arun to walk into the store or have a few meetings with the store, with the buyers, with the owners to understand if it's the right fit for our brand and if they are a good fit for us even as clients. Because it's sometimes when you carry jewelry in the store, they have a really specific mindset, but with each piece being so nuanced and storytelling, the client also has to understand it. And we always want to do a deep dive with each store to make sure that they're the right fit for us. And so Arun does go in, does speak to each of the buyers, each of the owners of each of the stores, and then we move forward with whether we're going to be placed in the store or not.
Wow, this is a really, really high touch type of approach. I love it, and I love you can just kind of like feel the passion. I'm picturing him. Maybe the salespeople have sort of set the stage for him to come in, and then he's really able to talk about all of this in excruciating detail because he's actually the one that has created everything. That must just be so much fun for him to sort of talk about where he was able to source some of the items that came together, where the inspiration for the pieces came from. I would love to be a fly on the wall for some of those stories.
Anytime you're in LA, please come on by. I would love to show you the pieces and have you meet Arun.
Oh my gosh, I would totally love that. I was going to ask you because so you said that you started here in New York, which is where we are, but I know that you are out in Beverly Hills. So what prompted the move from New York to California?
So when we moved to New York, we lived in New York, but he and I traveled a lot for our work. I used to travel a lot back to LA for work, and I used to do lots of different events. And so we realized we wanted to start a family, and his family lives in India, and my family is based in Los Angeles. And we both thought we should at least have one set of grandparents for our kids, and a move to LA at that time would be good. We had just bought an investment property that was getting ready. We were running out of our lease. The timing was ideal for us to have made that transition over, and we moved to LA, and we've been here ever since. We haven't
Oh,
looked back.
wow. Oh, wow. Wow. That is so interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that your family was from LA. It is so good, especially, when the both of you have this business together. You need that type of support from family when you have just forget about having kids. Like you just need family support. And then when you have kids, it's like it becomes critical. So my question is what, have building this business, it's a baby of its own, right? And then having your two children, how did that sort of impact how you sort of worked and engaged with the company?
Well, I was really involved in the company before I had my kids, and about 9.5 years ago, I had my older son who's going to be turning 10 this year. I stepped back to be a mom, but I was still part of the business in some capacity because I could never forego what I love doing, which is working. I'm a self-proclaimed workaholic, and then I became a mom. So I also wanted to be with my older son, and then we had our second son, and I became a stay-at-home mom for 100% stay-at-home mom about till about 6 years ago. And then when COVID happened, my kids were home all the time. They were Zooming all the time, and it got a lot for me to handle to just be in that environment. And I really felt I needed to do something with myself and my life because everybody was in such a state of influx and uncertainty. And so I decided to come back to work. So I say COVID made me work, and I loved coming back to work. I loved all the creations. I loved taking on the administrative, the logistical, the organizational, the strategy side of things because that's really my sort of focal point, and that's what I do best. So I started doing that in COVID, and I've been here for I would say now almost a year and a half back in the business, and I love, love, love every moment of being here and seeing the business grow once again in a different direction.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit. I mean, I think that's so interesting. And, it's such a blessing to be able to sort of be with our children at that stage in their lives when they need us most. I always worked. I've always worked. I started out in corporate and then I started my business in 2010. But when my kids were young, I never had a problem going to work. I didn't feel like I was missing out because I knew my kids were really well taken care of. And, I did a lot to spend time with them. But as they got older, like in that 10, 11, 12, middle school type of age, that's when I really took a step back from, what it was that I was doing, trying to build my business and all of that. And I really felt like that was the time that they needed me the most. They go through these emotional changes. It's so hard. It's not just about, making sure that they have food and that they're safe and taken care of. It's like a whole other level of like parenting at that point. Did you find the same thing?
I feel the same way. Whenever I see someone having kids, I say the first few years are more physical, which you think is harder, but it's actually the easier part. And then as they get older, the mental and the emotional takeover, which is you have to be so much more present and aware of your child to be able to navigate them on a more emotional and mental level and be able to work with them and not fight with them. So I definitely find it harder to manage, but I also love that I spend quality time with them. When I do come home from work, I am always there for homework, bedtime. I, read to them. We spend a lot of time together in the evening, and we always wake up in the morning and I'm with them. So I feel that my time with them is more quality based versus just waiting for them to show up and going through the motions of the pickups and drop offs. So
Yeah.
I really am happy to have that balance and to have the quality time at work and at home with them.
Yeah, that sounds like the best of both worlds. And I think it's so good for them to see, both their mother and their father working and working collectively on something that, is potentially a legacy for them, right? Like, what are you doing it for if not for them?
Well, let's hope so. They see it. Sometimes they don't always see it that way, but in the long run, I think it'll work out for them.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's awesome. And it's so good too that you're near your family so that they know that they're surrounded by a lot of different people that care about them. I think that that's really important, especially now these kids have just been through so much with COVID and things aren't over yet. Although, like we were talking right before the recording, the world that you're in as far as your business, I thought it was so interesting how you were saying that, some of these higher end luxury type of buyers like things have come back. And I love that. Can you talk a little bit about that and just the luxury market, how you're sort of observing it right now?
Sure. So when in the midst of COVID, we never thought that things would change or look better, but we always told ourselves that it would be like the Roaring Twenties. And sure enough, now that COVID has sort of died down, or now that we have a handle on the understanding and the vaccine, my clients are ready to take it on to the next level. I mean, they already lived pretty full, glamorous, and over the top life. And with things opening up, the events are larger than life. The galas are bigger than life, and their travels have taken on a whole nother meaning. So work has exploded in a way that I never thought it would. And I'm sort of caught off guard because it happened too quickly, but it has really grown on a level that I'm happy about. But I'm also just wondering where it's all going and when does it change again? But
Yeah.
till then, we're riding the wave. We have more events coming up now in the next few months than we've had in a few years. So we're excited. We're excited for all the new and upcoming events.
When it comes to the events and sort of maybe dressing, these high net worth individuals or even celebrities sometimes, does everybody pay or are there certain cases where you might like lend out a piece in order to gain some publicity? How does that work?
So we work with a lot of stylists, And
Mm.
one set of stylists works with the celebrities, and the celebrities don't necessarily pay for the jewelry. But to be honest, a lot of our clients don't really want to purchase jewelry that's already been photographed or seen. So we really have had to scale back on our celebrity stylist relationships and present the pieces as first pieces that have never been worn or seen.
Oh
So
my
we work with a
goodness.
lot of stylists with the wealthy women who have so many events and literally do not have the time to shop. So we work with those stylists that actually purchase the jewelry pieces for their clients to coordinate with their ball gowns and with their cocktail dresses and for the event.
Gosh, I think it's so interesting that, it's sort of the non celebrity, more wealthy type of client is not interested in wearing something that a celebrity has worn and that they really do want to be unique. I find that fascinating, actually.
It was quite a learning curve for us as well because we always thought that celebrities are, they give you a lot of brand knowledge and awareness, but it was sort of detrimental to our brand and we had to scale back. And now we do work with celebrity stylists, but we only work with sort of the A-list celebrities and the A-list stylists. And a lot of times
Wow.
when we do get the press, we will not put it on social media or we'll try to not bring awareness to it in the most obscure kind of way of thinking.
Wow. Yeah, I do. I find that fascinating. That is something that is completely unexpected. But at the same time, I think that people, especially wealthy individuals, have the luxury of sort of being unique and having something that nobody else has. I guess it's sort of like the next level of wealth, right? To say that you truly own a one of a kind that has never been seen before and it's yours.
Correct. Correct. So when we get placement for our products, if it's in an editorial piece or as a coverage in a magazine, depending on how the coverage is, then we'll have a client or two who'll say we want that piece only because they've seen it in such a different light versus on a celebrity where it's shown as in a different light. So it's really interesting how we've had to work around getting PR or making sure that our pieces are shown in the right perspective versus the on the client, celebrity clients.
Yeah, this is also something that is super fascinating too, right? It's like here you are, you're a business. You have to really develop very close, intimate relationships with, high-end retailers, but also these stylists. And it's sort of like, what seems that all businesses might want is press, right? So that people can be aware of it. But there's a certain point where you don't want everybody to know about it. You want to sort of protect. It's like an exclusive club that only certain people know about certain brands, and it seems like you are in that realm, if you will. So that's so it almost seems counterintuitive when it comes to getting press and creating awareness. How do you do that when your clientele doesn't really want everybody to know about about the pieces that they own?
Well, so we've had to be really careful in how we curate that brand awareness. It's been through a lot of events. It's part of a secret that's going to be discovered, but will opened up slowly instead of just being presented to them. So we work with a lot of individuals across the country who curate events for us for the right kind of group, and then they meet with Arun, and it becomes a really one-on-one event and a one-on-one emotional connect. And if they relate to the piece and to the story, then that's how they start becoming collectors of our jewelry. But to say that we would just go out there, stand, and do an event, it's pretty much we're never going to get a client that way. They want to feel connected to the brand. They have access to everything in this universe pretty much, but they want to feel an emotional connect, an emotional want, need to purchase the piece and
Gosh.
something that's relatable to them.
Yeah, there's a lot of psychology behind that.
There is, but it's when you look at it, it comes from simple humanistic need of wanting to just connect with people and then wanting what they have. When you
Yeah.
connect with anybody, you want a piece of whatever they're selling or wearing or have because you feel a connection to them. And it's the same thing with jewelry.
Now, did in sort of your family and your husband's family, was this storytelling, emotional connection aspect, was that how the previous generation's businesses approached it? Or did Arun take this like to another level?
That's a very interesting question, and one I've actually never thought about. But as soon as you asked me that, a lot of stories just kind of popped into my head. And when I think of culturally, India is a really large country with a deep, deep history of jewelry. And so when jewelers worked with families hundreds of years ago, from royal families to the next person who's purchasing jewelry, they go to the family jeweler. The family jeweler will come home. They talk about what their needs are. They start building a collection. A lot of the jewelry gets given to the daughters for their weddings. A lot of the jewelry gets given to the daughter-in-laws when the son gets married. So it becomes a collective conversation that then gets deep rooted in the jeweler telling the buyer of sorts, why this piece is important to have in your collection, what's the significance of it, why this is a good piece to collect and invest in. So it becomes a storytelling, but on a different level, but one that still stays with the buyer or the family, and they continue that heritage of buying from that jeweler. And it is a part of the storytelling, an emotional connect that the families have with the jeweler, and they become a sort of an advisor on the jewelry collection. And unknowingly or knowingly, or just because it's part of our DNA, I suppose, is how it all is manifesting itself in a completely contemporary setting, but one that we'd never even realized up until literally this moment that has come together.
Wow. Yeah, it's so beautiful, and I feel like there's such incredible energy behind that too. Like even, and I don't know if your husband actually creates the pieces based on somebody's desires or if he is inspired by something and so he creates something. But it seems to me that it's like an energetic connection to everything coming together. And it sounds like just so powerful. Like I'm thinking, how cool would it be to almost do like a historical perspective, like you just outlined, on how this business sort of came to be, because it's so much more than even just jewelry, right? All of these, even when you think about gems and stones and everything, they hold the earth's energy, right?
They
So it's almost like you hear like, oh, a piece finds you. Do you have, you might not, I just thought of it. Like, do you have any stories where, there was just some type of like magic that happened, almost like Arun was drawn to something or someone? There's got to be something there.
So it's funny that you asked. Arun actually creates a lot of pieces based on what he kind of sees in the world, what he notices on travels, what he notices on, maybe even what the kids are doing, what activities they're doing. And two stories pop into my mind, and I'll tell you one because it kind of relates to my son. When my older son Keon was about maybe a year old, he had this deep, deep fascination for snails. And I have no idea why he would love snails. And we would call him the snail whisperer because these snails would literally be on our walls all the time. And when he was not around or be gone vacation, they would all be gone and then they would slowly come back. It was really fascinating to see how that was happening. And so one day when Arun was, just I guess looking for gems, or the gems were looking for him, he found a pair of blue diamonds. And for some reason, he thought that he wanted to do a snail earring out of these blue diamonds.
Mm.
And he created the most amazing snail earrings with these blue diamonds, which were so fabulous that went on to be featured in Robe Report as one of the most coveted items for the year or for the season. And they sold a few $1 million later. So it's such a trajectory that Arun will see something and then keep building on it, but he has such a deep connection to each aspect of the creative process that he just creates it and it finds the right person at the right time.
God, I love this. It's so good. It's so good. And I love too how, gosh, this is like, I think there's so many parallels with like entrepreneurship. I love how I have so many different thoughts going through my head, but first of all, it's sort of baked into both of your DNA, right? The sort of the
Without a
jewelry.
doubt.
Yeah. So that comes first, right? So there's a propensity. It's just, who you are, who the both of you are, if you will. But I love this concept of him and you almost trusting that whatever it is that you're experiencing in life is going to manifest itself in a way that is going to turn into something that is beautiful and make a connection with someone else as like this gift. I just think it's beautiful.
Thank you. Well, that's what we love to do. We love to create what speaks to us, and hopefully, we just find one other person that can relate to us, and we're happy with that. We
Yeah,
all
yeah.
Our pieces of jewelry are like our kids because from the creation to the end takes so much work and time and effort and energy that you become a part of. They become a part of you. So when someone comes to you and wants to purchase a piece, you almost look at them and ask yourself, are you a good custodian for my piece of jewelry? Do you take it with the same emotion that I've created it? And then it gets sort of handed over.
Yeah. Wow, it in so many ways, it's like when you think about a business, it feels counterintuitive, right? There's all these business principles that you need to follow, and it's all about growth and, you know, uh, positioning things correctly and everything. And this is more about the artistry of it all. And I just think that there's probably a lot to learn here for there's this idea that your business doesn't have to be exactly what all other businesses are that are successful. You can have a different approach, a different model, if you will, that can work spectacularly. But you have to trust, and then you have to know that like if it's not working, when to maybe regroup.
You're right. You're absolutely right, Adrian. When I read, and I read a lot of books, and I've started taking some classes and whatnot, and when I hear a lot of the business advice, I always think to myself, well, that doesn't apply to me. That is not how we do things. And so, yes, there's a not, lot of information out there, but it's really more general. And and the hardest part has really been to take our business and be able to fine tune it in a way that works for us, and a lot of it has been trial and error. It hasn't been laid out to us in any of the books or in through any thing that I've learned out there. It's what we see, what we know that the business needs, and what we know that our clients need. Is how we have developed the business over the course of the few years. I mean, there's some things that have worked and there's some things that have not worked, but we take our lessons and move forward.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by this for so many different reasons, but one of the things that I talk about a lot is, I'm super focused on women-owned businesses and just with everything that we've seen with the great resignation and how working in a corporate environment oftentimes doesn't work for women, doesn't work for people that have families. There's not a lot of flexibility. You have to do things the way that corporate wants you to do things. And so I say a lot, like I believe truly that entrepreneurship is the antidote to working in a corporate environment. But one of the other things that I talk about a lot is, even with the Goldman Sachs program, and I learned a lot, so I don't want to, misspeak about it at all, but a lot of what we learned was based on what has been successful in the past when creating a company. And what's unfortunate about that is here we are as, women entrepreneurs building off a model that doesn't work for us. And so I look at like the results, like, well, that's why when women start businesses, we don't often get past the $1 million mark, or, we have trouble getting access to financing. It's because we're building something that is not for us. And so I'm always looking around for, well, what's a new type of business model that is more designed to benefit women. And I feel like in talking to you today, I feel like this could be a really good model because it's based on like inner knowledge and honoring your gifts.
No, you're right. And going back to your point about Goldman Sachs, it's a great program. It helped me solidify a lot of my thinking and be able to streamline and channelize it. But I think that that's just a starting point where a lot of the entrepreneurs have to sort of jump off from. They then have to be led by an inner voice, as you mentioned, and be able to take chances. And I think that women also are really intuitive, and I think that they need to be led by that intuition and to have faith in themselves and their thinking and know their client base. So
Yeah.
that's sort of how we have built our business, and that's how I lead from. I think a lot of women need to kind of go in that direction and just be true to themselves and their thoughts.
Yeah. And I also really love the idea of the balance too. I love businesses that it's, a man and a woman, a husband and a wife. I think yin and yang. I think that is also something that is super important because, sometimes the pure feminine energy, kind of takes you down one path. And then obviously the pure male energy oftentimes takes you down a certain path. But when I think the two different genders come together and you can, work things out and balance things out. I think that could be a really interesting model for, success. But I really love hearing about your business and how you and your husband are approaching it, because I do feel like it provides a framework that we can observe and think about, and seeing all of the success that you've had, that's another component of it, right? So all these other businesses that are created are successful, and so that's why we pattern ourselves and try to build businesses like that. Some of these other businesses that women create, and that's a sweeping statement, but some of these other businesses that women create, they often don't get to those levels of success. So why would you want to sort of follow that when it doesn't get you what you want? But here you've laid out for us that there is another way. And I think it's scary to almost trust yourself, right? And your intuition, because we haven't really been taught how to do that.
Right. We come from a really strategic kind of thinking. We never do a deep dive into what it is that's working and not working and picking up on that. And a lot of the intuition sort of stems from when you do something right and you get good results. I would say more than even intuition, follow that trajectory and that path of success. And if something doesn't work well, don't try to fix it. Move on to a newer way. But you have to be sort of outside the box thinkers. You have to be creative in your thinking. And you do have to apply a lot of different aspects of your life to what you're doing at that moment. If you think that success is going to be, from a textbook or from a class, it's just a starting point of the thought process. It is not a Bible or guidelines of how to run your business. And I think
Yeah.
women have to know that and then be back in touch with themselves to know what it is. And they have to understand what their clients want. I think
Yeah.
that's a really important aspect of any business. Ask
Yeah.
yourself, what do my clients want? And then just really go from there instead of thinking, what do I give my clients? I think when you just put the questions differently, the answers are completely different, and that is your direction and goal.
This is so smart. When we teach this class that I teach, that it's an MBA class at Rice University, and it's called New Venture the new enterprise. I don't know. I'm confused what I'm teaching. The new enterprise. And one of the modules is that we have the students go out and talk to customers. They interview customers with these open-ended questions. And it's one of the hardest things that these MBA students do because they're so focused on what is the solution that they want to put out in the marketplace instead of listening to the people that they're actually creating this solution for. And it's revolutionary, this approach. And it sounds silly, but it's like to actually talk to the customers. And I feel like when you were describing how your husband goes in and talks to the buyers, and that's what he's doing. He's not only relaying his story, he's also gathering information. And he's bringing that back, whether he does it consciously or not. And I love all of this. I feel like these are some of the critical components of success and I love how you said, use some of these resources, books, courses, whatever, use them as a starting point, but then experiment, go out, talk, and keep following the stuff that's working.
Yes, I mean, that's sort of how we have built our business, seeing what works for us and what doesn't, and just kind of taking it from there.
I love it.
Whenever I read a lot of the business books or, they ask you to put a business plan together and whatnot, they always say, what is the pain point that you're trying to resolve? And I think to myself, there is really no pain point that I'm trying to resolve. I'm just trying to provide beautiful jewelry, but that's not a pain point. So, there's so many questions out there that don't apply to all the businesses, and yet we are focused or made to think in a certain direction. But I think that not every question needs to be answered in that specific manner.
Yeah, I love that. And, it almost seems to me that if you were to ask me, what pain point are you trying to solve with your business? It almost comes down to like a fundamental identity, right? It's like these wealthy individuals want to have something that is uniquely their own. And that's the relief that you're providing them. And you're doing it in the most beautiful, luxurious way possible, but you're almost giving them a sense of identity.
Exactly. I'm providing a beautiful piece of jewelry, but I'm giving them something that they wouldn't otherwise have seen. But I
Yeah.
don't know that I'm necessarily going out and changing the world, as some of these
No.
questions seem.
Yeah. No. Right. Right. Like, right. Yeah. Are you solving world hunger? No, but
We're not
you're
solving
making
world
people happy.
hunger. I am satisfying their need for beautiful artifacts.
Yeah. And that's also, I think, a very fundamental human need. I mean, going back in, the beginning of human history, humans always wanted something like as a talisman to signify something. And we've always been drawn to storytelling, beauty, and art. So yeah, you're just continuing the tradition.
Yes, I'm happy to continue to do so.
Yeah. No, I love it. I definitely have to come out to LA. I have a couple of friends that live out there. So I can definitely make my way out there, have a good reason, another reason to come out.
Well, we would love to see you here. We'd love to show you the creations and have you meet with Arun. He is he is quite the charmer, and he's very good at what he does and the way he presents himself. He's really earnest, and that's I think that's the most important part of any business.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for spending these last 40 or so minutes with me. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I just can't wait to keep in company with you. I know that we'll be doing some things together in the future, hopefully around women and women entrepreneurs. So just thank you so much. And, by the way, where can people, if they want to follow what you're doing on social or connect with you, how can they go about doing that?
Sure. Our Instagram handle is Arunashi BH, and our website is arunashi.com. And we're not very active on social media or our website, but we are really active when we have our collections in stores. So we are at the Saks and Neiman's and around the country for the most part, and several of the retailers. So Yes,
I
stop
love
in.
it.
If there's a specific question, I'm happy to match you up with a retailer or store in that area. If
That
there's
sounds great. So good. And I definitely will include all of that information in the show notes. And then I'm going to get myself into Saks and go over to the fine jewelry department and see if I can find some pieces.
Please do. Adrian, this was super fun. I loved having this conversation with you. More than a podcast, it was just a really lovely way of speaking to another female in the industry and who is an outside the box thinker. And I really appreciated my time with you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really been my pleasure. And we will definitely connect again soon.
I look forward to meeting you and connecting soon. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is the She Leads Podcast Network.